Good afternoon, everybody. Here we go with another lockdown presentation. And today we've got Coco van Oppens, who's going to give us a bit of background on feature film photography. Sometimes you sort of wonder, well, how can you make a living doing that? Or even you sort of think, well, how can I make a living making photography? This is one of those where you kind of go, well, I didn't think of that. That's a pretty cool thing. So Coco has been on various film sets and series sets. To name a few, The Crown. I don't know if you watched The Crown. Call the Midwife, Doctor Who season 11, The Widow, and Our Girl, to name but a few. So Coco, let's start off by saying welcome. And what have you been doing during the lockdown period?
Cool, thank you. Thanks for having me, Quentin. Okay, well, it's been a strange time to be around at this time. Cape Town, as you know, has been like the rest of South Africa in full lockdown level 5. So I've been trying to cover that from a perspective of specifically level 5. For me, I sort of wanted to focus on specific areas. So the main areas that I've been focusing on are portraits of the homeless, and then some landmarks in Cape Town that are sort of iconically bustling with people, and to photograph them with absolutely no one there or very few people is quite eerie, actually. So I've been doing that. And then also a fantastic collaboration with a photographer called Nikki Newman. Shout out to Nikki Newman. She's a fabulous photographer. Look her up. So she's been basically gathering funds and getting food for homeless people in specific areas of Cape Town. So I've worked with her on some collaborative work under specific bridges with people. So that's been great.
Fantastic. And how did you get the permission to shoot as a essential service?
Essential service, and I think the form is, I think, section 13 for media. So I'm shooting for a client in the States,
Right.
That's sort of my way around getting these shots for,
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing your work and hearing the stories behind it. So whenever you're ready.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay. Are we up?
Yep.
Okay, good. 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 Well, again, thank you, Quentin, for this and for inviting me. I think I give you some credit for chasing me down and being patient with me as well, and having me do this talk. So thank you very much.
It was a bit of a chase, eh?
I did put you off for a bit, but it was just because of that busy time in doing the shoot. So I just didn't really have time to do this. But I appreciate your time, and I know this has been a lot of work for you. So hello, everybody else out there, anybody who knows me and doesn't know me. Thank you for being here and listening to this. And I hope that you can at least hear me. I can't see you, but you can see me. All right, so let's start off with a little bit of housekeeping. So we'll just, this is my website for any of you interested in seeing more of my pictures. And my Instagram handle and Facebook page is Coco van Oppens Photography. So as I mentioned to you, I've been doing this project in and around Cape Town. So just gonna, without saying very much, to show you a couple of pictures that I've shot. There's an NGO that were handing out food parcels in Nyanga, near Crossroads outside Cape Town. And I was drawn to this woman's mask. So I sort of edited it in a bit of a funky way so that you could actually just see South Africa there. I was told shortly into taking pictures of her that she was blind, which sort of added a lot more emotion to the shot as well. So the projects with some homeless people in the deserted streets of Cape Town. This is Long Street. I look at this shot and it makes me realize actually how grateful I am, even at this time, for, you know, all my limbs and for having a home and all of those things. So it's pictures like this really can speak loud words. These are a couple of shots that that Nikki took of me while we were out and about shooting. So as I mentioned to you, Quentin, I think collaboration is the way forward. And it's really great to hang out with another professional photographer, because then you can start to see yourself through the eyes of somebody else's lens. And collaborating has been actually a wonderful thing. So I'm hoping that we can do maybe something online, have an exhibition online, if that sort of, you know, comes out. So the next few shots are some stuff I did with Nikki under this bridge. It's heartbreaking when you see people and it's, you know, you've had heavy rains and you can see just the mom's leg there is completely soaking wet from just being out and about, and it's just, it's heartbreaking.
Absolutely, and everything that you own is completely soaked.
Yeah,
it's been
exactly.
very, very difficult.
Yeah. And then on the other side of things, just the emptiness of the waterfront. Okay, well, that was just a sort of brief peek into a couple of things that I've been doing. But I think I'm here to chat to you about my journey as an on-set photographer. So let's go there. So I get asked this a lot, you know, what is an on-set photographer? A lot of people actually don't know that it actually is a job that exists. So the official definition for a on-set photographer is basically we work as freelancers. We're hired by producers, film studios, publicity departments, PR firms, and we're there basically to cover the scenes on TV series and film sets. We don't have any direct supervision on set, so we're kind of just a solo team. But we are responsible for delivering a few hundred images per day of film shooting. And we are very much an integral part of the marketing team that will use our images to monetize the movie or the TV series. So in a nutshell, the publicity material can appear in, as you can see here, magazines, magazine covers, DVD packaging, Blu-ray covers. These would be considered like key art or iconic imagery. Social media, online content as well. And then Netflix, for those of you who have Netflix, you see all these little thumbnails that will reflect the specific series or season. So those thumbnails can also be used there for publicity purposes.
I'm never going to look at that intro screen of Netflix again without going, oh, I wonder if Coco shot that. Oh, oh.
Well, for The Crown, basically, they did a very short part of it here in Cape Town. So it was a huge privilege actually to work on that production. So, okay, going back to posters and outdoor advertising, like billboards, like this one. So the one on the left, and I only got to see this by chance, was advertising in New York City. So this was a big billboard for The Widow with Kate Beckinsale, and then the one on the right is in Hollywood. So they'll also use your images for that type of publicity. It could be on a bus, it could be on underground stations. So it really is a mix of different things that they can, you know, use your images for. Here you can see a variety of posters that I did. This is basically the key art again, or conceptual imagery that that we have, or that they basically speak to you about. Either the publicist or the PR firm or whoever's hiring you will come up with some kind of a concept. Okay, so the next slide is basically a slideshow. So I'm going to introduce you to a few of the images that I've shot over the years on various movies and TV series. So fasten your seatbelts. So we're very fortunate in Cape Town to attract many international productions. The variety of locations make Cape Town and surrounds very much a sought after film location and destination. So in that way, I'm very blessed to be living here at this time. So where did it all start? So Quentin, for me, my youth, I didn't really explain to you anything about my youth or anything, but it was spent sort of traveling from one country to the next, experiencing different cultures and languages and customs. And so my world was framed through the windows of trains, planes, and automobiles. So when I look back, I'm not surprised that this frame has morphed into the viewfinder of my camera. So in essence, photography is not really a job. It's who I am. I studied a degree in photography in the States, in California, and then I traveled a bit and ended up in Costa Rica, as one does in Central America, shooting adventure travel brochures, and I worked on my first movie there. So I was very inspired, and this was back in 1992, so many years ago. And then I was so inspired by the film industry that I moved back to Europe, and I worked mainly in Madrid, but I was between London and Madrid. And I basically shot and worked with film magazines where we did a lot of editorials on actors. I attended press junkets where I would photograph actors who were promoting their movies. I worked as a photographer at red carpet events, and then I moved into photography on set, so shooting on set, and it was the days of film. So you'd have your roll of film and you'd pop it into your camera and off you go. So that's really where the bug bit me, all of this traveling and then ending up on film sets in Europe. So talking about traveling, this whole travel has sort of inspired me, or at least motivated me to realize, as I was putting this slideshow together, how privileged I am to do what I do. I think you never realize really what you do until you have the time to sit down and put together a bit of a presentation. You suddenly realize, wow, this is what I do. So not only am I surrounded by incredible locations and wonderful actors and crew, but most importantly, as a unit photographer or feature film photographer or on-set photographer, I get to time travel. So the time travel is really what drew me in. So here, for instance, I'm going to demonstrate, actually, because I can, sort of how South Africa has become a popular film destination, just to keep it alive, because as you know, we're not working anymore. So we've got to keep the people coming in and coming to shoot here, which I know, you know, they will in time. So I got to travel with the British royal family. So here we have, the top shots are in Ghana. The Castle of Good Hope in Cape Town was doubling as Ghana in the 1960s with the Queen. And the bottom two were in Knysna, and this was doubling as Papua New Guinea with Prince Philip. And it was the Keabum River. So this was, as I said to you, was season 2 of The Crown. Then I got to visit a colonial British outpost in Yemen. We're still in Cape Town, and that doubled. Simonstown doubled as Yemen in this case, and it was a series called The Last Post for BBC. Fantastic series, really enjoyed it, but unfortunately it was short-lived. Only had one season. So this was at a naval base in Simonstown. Then I managed to jump onto the Calypso, Jacques Cousteau, basically his life story on a movie called L'Odyssée or Odyssey. As a film crew, we shot in and around Cape Town. We visited Hout Bay, Seal Island, Robben Island, and in and around Cape Town. A lot of time was spent on the boat. So that was really special. Then I was sort of flown back in time into ancient Baghdad. We can see the images here of ancient Baghdad on a lovely TV series for kids called Jamil and Aladdin for CBBC. So this whole village was built outside Franschhoek. So that it was basically a wonderful. They did 2 seasons of it, so that I was lucky to work on both. And then the Cape Town Film Studios, obviously very important landmark in Cape Town. That was, I jumped on a spaceship there, went into outer space with the TV series Origin. Also fantastic sets, and the actors were formidable, really lovely, lovely project to work on. One of my favorite historical dramas was this one here, which was called Andrew Marr's History of the World. You can see in this shot here, this was the DVD cover for the BBC. So it's always nice as a photographer to get recognized. I think the first time I saw this cover, I nearly exploded because I thought, wow, look at all my pictures. And it was not just on the front cover, it was also on the back cover. So that was great. But it's an 8-part docudrama. If you haven't seen it, I think it's still around. So it's called History of the World. And it just, Wikipedia describes it very beautifully and said the series is noted for its elaborate Hollywood-like recreations of people and events. Great care was taken in accurate costumes and the use of original language for those portrayed. Luckily, Cape Town is a bit of a melting pot. African, Chinese, European, Middle Eastern, you name it, they've got it, except Aborigines. So we shot everything in and around here, and the next few frames will be just sort of chronological imagery of pictures I did on the show. Modern humans leaving Africa 60,000 years ago. Buddha under the Bodhi tree. The Battle of Marathon in ancient Greece. This is Bilal on horseback, and Bilal was Muhammad's trusted right-hand warrior. I've got 2 pictures here. The next one that follows is actually from the same shot, and it just is actually a behind the scenes. So when you can't get a shot that the camera's getting, you can always get your behind the scenes shot from that. So there it is. It's a camera tracking vehicle in the Atlantis dunes. following, these galloping horses through the dunes. So I found my position, sat on a dune, and tried to get on the tracking vehicle. It's always very difficult because you'll have your main operators on there and your focus pullers and your AD, so it's difficult to then fit a photographer. But I do try. I always try to get on those.
Coco, just a question relating to when you're shooting on set. So I'm going to assume that you're pretty much shooting as the action is happening. So the lighting, etc., is working for you. Do you find that piggybacking off their lighting is the way that you would normally go about shooting that?
I cover this a little bit later. I always say that as a unit photographer, you're not there to control the light. You're there to find the light. So you can't, as a unit photographer, go on and try and change anything. You really must accommodate what is going on around you, and just you can't really change anything, Quentin. It's kind of like you're there, and you really have to be. But I do take us a little bit into that in my presentation of that, because it is one of those things that you wonder, you'd really like to be the person who goes on and says, right, but you can't be.
No, it's not going to happen, yeah.
No, it's not.
But it must, obviously you're going to chat about it a little bit later, but obviously it must be fairly helpful to have, all those massive lights lighting it up, just like the director's intending it.
Exactly. And it really depends on where you position yourself. So, the main lighting will be for first camera. So a camera is the one that they're lighting for, because it's the main camera. But you could be on a set where there are 4 cameras. I was working on a show last year where they had 4 cameras. So you really had to really try and find a place where you could be to shoot. So yeah, you have to know your lighting, you have to know your camera, your technical skills. But as I say, I'll take you through a little bit of that a little bit later on as I unpack what it means to be an on-set photographer. Going back to now, we're going back to 1533, where this is Atahualpa. He was the last Inca emperor, and he was executed by Pizarro. So this was back in Andrew Mars's History of the World. This shot was done at the Catholic Chapel in Nazareth House, just around the corner here in Cape Town. Galileo, 1642, the father of modern science, at his trial. And so I think I was up a ladder somewhere by the looks of the shot, sort of next to the main camera. Ivan the Terrible, first Tsar of Russia. And that was shot at the Orthodox Greek Church. So you can see a lot of the locations in Cape Town are very well used and tell the story. This one here is a little bit different. French Revolution, it was the beheading of Louis XVI. Sometimes when you have shots like this, you can literally shoot the beheading of, but who wants to really look at that? So you've got to be creative, and do you want to see the gory details? This is slightly gory, but it's a sort of creative interpretation of the shot, really, of the beheading of, and this was shot outside the Cape Town City Hall in the CBD of Cape Town. The Russian Revolution in the wheat fields on the outskirts of Cape Town. And coming to an end, here we have Gandhi. And he was known as the revolutionary pacifist. So again, this shot highlights the South Africans' cultural diversity as far as talent that you can find, obviously with the exception of Aborigines, and they were flown in from Australia for this. Good. Okay, so now to the reality. Reality bites here, Quentin. The reality of being an on-set photographer is that sets are hectic. They're hectic, chaotic environments with hundreds of artisans and craftsmen and technicians and actors, and everybody sort of working towards the goal of creating a fictional story for the public. So it's busy. and it's often very challenging for a unit photographer, stills photographer, to have this job. So it's about juggling. I found this lovely gif of this lady juggling a few cameras, and I thought, well, this just actually encapsulates exactly, you know, what we do on set. So let me take you to a few of basically the art of being an on-set photographer pointers. Okay, so the art of an on-set photographer, as you can see here, it really is very much dependent not only on your technical skills, but very much on your interpersonal skills. You've got to be confident enough to speak to actors when you need to, and are called to do so, even though you want to be as invisible as possible. I always say you've got to take your invisible cloak with you when you go to set. So it's about being confident yet invisible at the same time. So communication, very important, because not only are you going to be talking to actors, you're going to be talking to your clients prior to going on set. You might have conference calls. You might have conference calls to LA and to London all at the same time, and they all want to talk to the on-set photographer. So you've got to be able to know exactly what they want, be able to dialogue with all the relevant people, PR departments. You ask them about the deliverables. That's sort of a terminology that we use. What are your deliverables? What are you looking for? And they will basically tell you the what, the how, the when. You know, do they require dailies every day? Are you going to load them up to certain applications, online applications? Like big film studios have an application called Film Solutions. So it's a photo approval platform. So you can load up your dailies there. But basically you have great autonomy. When you're on set, the invisibility, you're in stealth mode the whole time. I think that is super, super important, that you're not just sitting in one place. You are moving around quite a lot. You're watching Video Village, which is where all the, if you have 4 different cameras, there'll be Video Village where you go and get to see what they're all framing up on. You can pick your best places and then you sit next to the camera if you can. As I said, you have no control over the lighting, is what we spoke about. So you find your light, you don't control it, you communicate. Actually, this is a big one, Quentin. For me, if somebody said to me, what was one thing you should know as an on-set photographer? And I would say, get on with your crew. More than anything else, just make sure that you get on with the people that you work with, because at any point in time, you could need a ladder, you could need to squeeze in somewhere, you would need to plug in your battery, your power banks, your computers, you need to download somewhere. All of this is about interpersonal skills and your relationship with the people that you work for and with. So hierarchy on set is a big one. You really are nobody in the sort of hierarchical sense of who's who on set. Which is quite sad, but you've got to sort of adjust to that, and knowing that you're there for a purpose and you're there for a reason and you're there to deliver very high caliber images, even though you're not really considered. So the art of listening, super important. And when I say the art of listening, I mean you're listening to the AD the whole time, because that's giving you a pointer towards what's happening next. You can be a fly on the wall. You're listening. I always have a radio on me, so I know when the actors are leaving their caravans and they're about to hit set. So I know I have to be there in case I'm downloading somewhere. Your eye lines are super important, that you're not in the eye lines. Okay, so I'm going to take you through just the various categories that I shoot on set. Very simply, they are scenes, behind the scenes, plates, onset portraits, gallery, which are the studio shots or the iconic shots, and makeup sometimes, or camera tests. So you're not always going to be hired for all of those particular categories. There is an urban legend of the photographer who arrived on set and waited all day to get his shots, and then at the end of the day asked the AD, when am I going to get my shot? And the AD said, it's a wrap. So the photographer never got his shot. So don't be that photographer, and for goodness sake, don't take a flash on set. You will be fired.
I was just going to say, obviously the flash for sure, but what about the sound of your shutter? Do you use the silent modes or anything like that, or is it not really a biggie because the sound is being recorded away from you?
Yes. You're asking all the questions I'm gonna take you.
Okay, I'll keep quiet.
No, directly. Yeah. So that's a good question, Quentin. I used to use a blimp. I will take you through the blimp that I did have. But I'm working with mirrorless cameras at the moment, and they're fantastic. So they basically, on electronic shutter, they're completely silent. And they work a treat. I mean, when these cameras arrived on the market, I said goodbye to Nikon and I said hello to Fuji. So that's really up to the photographer. Everybody has their own choice in what they want to use. So those are the various categories that one can shoot. I think the first three are definites of shots that you will, and the last three are perhapses. You may or may not shoot that. All right, so let's take you lights, camera, action. Let's take you onto set. I'm going to go through those various categories in the form of visuals, so you can actually see what I'm talking about in those various categories. So as photographers, it's our job to capture the mood and the sense of emotion in a single frame, like this one here. Also capturing set design and the action. Scenes often require rehearsal times. Here the director is busy chatting to the actress in front of a camera, and oftentimes shooting requires a rehearsal, and sometimes actors don't like you to shoot the take itself, so they only want you to shoot during the rehearsal time. Not great for a photographer because the actor might not be wearing the relevant clothing at the time. They might be saving the true emotion for the actual take. They might not have the right proppage in their hands. For this particular shot, she had her hands covered in blood because, as you see, somebody had just been shot at the bottom of the frame. You can see somebody there. So rehearsals are great to shoot. I tend to do both, and the reason I do both is that sometimes they'll frame up for the shot and then they'll change their minds, and then they'll go in and change the angle, and then you've lost your shot, or the boom swinger might reposition themselves in front of where you were originally sitting. So yeah, try and shoot both if you can. Attention to detail is so important. I mean, this shot could be great to be used if it could be considered a great shot under normal circumstances. But if you pay attention to the shot, you can see Ethan Hawke's sides, which are his dialogue for the day, in his pocket. So that white piece of paper really is not part of the shot itself. So shoot this, but then shoot again the scene. Building trust with actors is super important. Often that is the difference between you getting your shot and not getting your shot. So you must establish a good rapport with your actor. And that really is very subjective. It's up to each person to develop that relationship and to develop the style of, I don't tend to talk to actors very much unless they talk to me. But I do engage them if I need to get the shot. They're not your friends, in other words. Actors' eye lines, very super important. So if you're starting off, I would definitely keep out of the eye line of the actor. Otherwise, they'll let you know. It's very distracting for actors to have a photographer sort of bouncing around in the back of the shot, trying to get the shot. Some actors don't mind at all. So really, it really depends on the actor, and you'll find your way with this. Low light situations. So sometimes you'll find yourself in a low light situation. Not a good idea to arrive with a tripod. So I often bring a monopod, so that keeps me small and slim, and I can fit in anywhere practically. But yeah, that's one situation you might find. So have your kit. Have your kit. Small spaces, definitely an issue. So this is a container hospital, which was for 24 hours to live. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of equipment in the background there, plus the actors. And then behind me or next to me are 2 extra cameras with grips, boom swingers, and a dolly. And so spaces can be tight. So again, all about developing your relationship with the people that you work with. Sometimes, like for this shot, the anecdote behind, or the story behind this, is I was walking past and Ethan Hawke was sitting in his car. I knew we were about to turn over in a couple of minutes, and I just asked him if he wouldn't mind pointing his gun in my general direction, to which he obliged, which was great. And even though this wasn't part of the scene, it was a shot that was used to promote the movie quite a lot. So sometimes you'll just go on instinct and see what the best thing is to be able to shoot. You sometimes won't be able to get your shot because the camera's in the way, or there's a dolly, or there's just no room for you to fit in. So you might need to shoot it again, and that again speaks volumes about your interpersonal communication skills with actors. I would go to the AD and ask him if I can do it again. Make sure your actors are not looking into your camera when they do it, they're looking away. Including background in your shot often is great for storytelling. So Action Point with Johnny Knoxville here, definitely the background tells the story of what is going on and why she is looking so shocked. Also, production design gives context to where and when and where you are, as well as obviously the wardrobe and the makeup and that sort of thing. This is Jacques Cousteau. So that, yeah, I think it was shot in the 50s, this. So it tells you all, the wardrobe tells you a lot about the story. This is a big one. The stunt of the day. Sometimes as a photographer, you get called to be on set. You know, on TV series, you're not there every day. On movies, you are there every day. So if you're not there every day, you will be called in for a specific stunt or for a specific action. So as a photographer, you want to make sure that you have your equipment is ready, that you don't miss the shot. Like this one, you know, Johnny Knoxville is sort of getting knocked off his feet by a water cannon in his true style, and they only did this once. So if you missed this shot, then you'd be in trouble, and you'd have to sort of explain to, you know, your publicist or whoever's wrangling you at the time why, you know, why you didn't get it. Children on set could be an issue for photographers when they're newborns or babies or kids. They don't like to have so many crew around. So as a female photographer, actually works in my favor in this particular regard, because I would be then allowed to stay and take the shots. Again, children on set, it's more about minding your language. You know, we know crew can swear a little, only a little. So we really must mind our language when there are kids around. But ultimately, it is about getting that, capturing the iconic cinematic shot. And that's really your job, to be there. So I hang around the camera 12 hours a day. I'm there the whole time. So filming action movies, you really need to think about your equipment and what extra gear you need to bring. I spent a lot of time shooting on film sets that involved war movies, and I've been in Afghanistan, Cape Town, for a couple of years. So, you know, you need to protect your gear, know what's happening the next day as far as gunfire, smoke, etc. So ear and eye cover protection. This is a shot that Raymond, I believe you did a talk with Raymond, and he took my lens apart.
Is this your lens?
Yes, it is my lens. So after one particular show, which will remain unnamed, sand was flung, tossed and hurled at the actors, and by default, anybody standing around the camera, because sometimes they use these very big wind machines. So, you know, even though your lens is weatherproof, you might be in a situation like this. I actually nearly cried when Raymond sent me the shot, but he did a great job. So he put it all back together and it works. But you might be in instances with low-flying helicopters, with small stones spitting up. I wear knee pads. I'm known as the knee pad photographer. So when I go on set, I've got these knee pads. I think people think I've got something wrong with my knees, but then they realize that I spend a lot of time on my knees. So just to end off the action section, basically for this, I would advise people to, if you for shots like this, I think that we need to have a little bit of a touch of madness, nerves of steel, and a very strong sense of humor. I mean, I want to just give a big shout out to the crew in Cape Town, because the special effects teams are wonderful, and this car exploded specifically vertically up and not towards the camera or the actors. So yeah, we've got great crew shooting here in Cape Town. So kudos to them. Good. All right. So behind the scenes, another section. So that's self-explanatory. I'm just going to show you my style of shooting is pretty much journalistic. So I'm just going to show you a couple of behind the scenes. Always a nice thing to have.
Your sister Dominique says, "Hello, that's my amazing sister."
Thanks, Dom. And crew shots, they're always lovely to have at the end of a show. You get all the crew together. This one is especially nice because we were on the end of a boat. The sun was going down, Cape Town mountains behind. I mean, it's rare that you actually get a crew shot where all the elements just work. So this was a really special one. Good. Plates are also I'm just going to say very little about plates. Plates are basically sets or locations that are empty of humans. So when you have an opportunity to shoot them, you just go ahead and just shoot these plates so that they can use them for promotional material. This is inside a genie lamp for Jamil and Aladdin, and the various sets in and around ancient Baghdad marketplace. Moving on to Onset Portraits, also something that sometimes they don't ask you to do, but sometimes they do, and these can have to be done very quickly because literally you're pulling the actors off the set for moments or even a minute or 2 minutes. So these shots were literally done in a couple of minutes where they gathered the cast and we popped them in front of the set and on a truck. You know, the faster you work, the better it is for you in getting your next shot. So if the actors can see that you can work very fast, then you can probably ask them again if you establish a good relationship with them. But, you know, that's, again, it's up to each and every person to have that relationship. And if you're doing portraits, this is when the actors do get to look into your camera and at you. I always ask them to look either side of me and at me so that they can use it for all different types of imagery.
Brett Florence says, "Big hugs from Amsterdam from Andrea and me. Great presentation."
How's it, Brett? Andy? Cool. Brett Florence, you need to talk on this platform. Okay, just hashtag. All right. And then also, Another action shot, you know, this was very much, it does look like he's in the middle of a war zone, but actually he wasn't. I had another actor pouring dust all over him, quite close to him. I was right on the floor. He was right on the floor. I asked him to scream, and it does look like he's in the thick of it. But if somebody had taken it behind the scenes, you would have seen that actually not much was really going on. So it really is up to you to capture. All right, moving on to gallery and specials. Now, these are areas that are pretty much quite focused in that you get a brief from your client, and in the form of maybe a concept book or a character bio breakdown or specific instructions to do 3/4 shots, close-ups, wide, tight. So they're more specific. So this one here was from the BBC for Our Girl, and they really wanted a shot of the lead actress. So they just found this shot and said, you know, this would be her, and she's sort of flanked by her 2 other co-actors, and we need her looking to camera but not into camera, and there's got to be dust and atmosphere around her. It's got to be a strong and bold shot, and not look very static. So from this, and then obviously the helicopter in the background, they would drop in afterwards. So I presented them with this shot. They used various plates that I'd done and positioned them in there so that they could make it look like the helicopter was actually taking off. But most of the time we are shooting in a studio. So this studio can be a makeshift studio. You can go to wherever they're shooting and find a little room in the back where you set up a studio with a gray cyc. They call them cycloramas, or gray backgrounds, so that they can take a shot like this and turn it into something like this. And then sort of lastly, just the last couple of shots on that category. The shot on the very left is actually the shot that I did on set with these actors. The middle one is what Amazon Prime used to advertise the movie. And then across the puddle in England, the BBC used the shot on the very right. So you can see different territories use different images to market to the public. So it really depends on your audience and who's watching and how they're going to use your shots, and they can just change it up. This was done in studio, and then they dropped in the background as well on the last post. Lovely show as well. But most of the time, they're studio shots, great background. You know, here you have a little bit more control with your actors. Okay, and finally moving on to my equipment, I really didn't sort of, you know, the equipment thing, as I mentioned to you, is very much subjective to who you are and what you're used to. I did start my career as a you know, film set photographer with actual spools of film. So we have blimps. The top left is the original Jacobson blimp, and they have been going for 50 years until they closed their doors 2 years ago. Blimps are really a box which is padded so that the sound of your shutter is muted, so that the boom swinger doesn't pick up the click, 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 click of that. So basically, yeah, as I say, and then the bottom one is a sort of MacGyver version that I had somebody help me out with, which is a Pelican case, which was a brand new one. I nearly cried. Taken, you know, apart, and I could put any camera in there, so you can see all the padding. But just to touch on Fuji, I am a Fuji girl, and I shoot with Fujifilm. That's my choice. And I have various bodies, from the H1X to the XT3 and a backup XT2 in my bag. But as a photographer, I work with 2 bodies, a wide zoom and a tight zoom. So it's the 50 to 140, 2.8, and the 16 to 55, 2.8. And those are fixed lenses that I have. As a stills photographer on set, you have very little time to change lenses. I do have a couple of primes, but I find that those are the ones that I, you know, like using. And why do I like Fuji? A lot of reasons. Electronic shutter, as I mentioned to you at the beginning, and the usability of the command buttons, that I don't have to go deep down into the menu when I'm looking for different things to do. It's all set up for me. The weatherproofness of the camera, the fast focus, the out-of-camera quality, dual SD cards. The battery life is a little bit, but I think they're getting better with that one. And really, that's me for this this presentation. I just want to say thank you to all of you. And being the day that it is, I want to just say one thing. You knew this was coming, Quentin, hey?
Oh, I knew it was coming. Wonderful.
Great. It's a wrap. Thank you very much. Thanks to you guys and for watching. And I don't know who you are, but thanks for watching. And Quentin, again, thank you very much for having me. I just wanted to thank a few people on a couple of the slides here.
Okay. Have you still got some more slides there? Sorry, I've just
that's it. That's my last one. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, I knew that May the 4th be with you was coming. Fantastic.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I did warn
I knew it was coming. In fact, it's the daily theme for today. So I haven't seen any Star Wars imagery on the group. So you still got a couple of hours. Make sure that you get your May the 4th be with you images on there. Coco, I've got a question. You said that
I don't see you, Quentin, so I'm kind of all I see is my screen. Can I leave this here?
Yes, you can. You can unshare that.
Ah, there we go.
Okay, cool. Great. So you said early on that when you shoot, you obviously shoot whatever your requirements are, a couple of hundred a day, and then that gets used for DVD covers, posters, etc. My question relates to ownership of the images and licensing and annuity income, etc. Do you own the images, or does the studio own the images, and is it a once-off payment, or how does it work?
Okay, normally you will sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, before you start the show, and in this NDA, the copyright is owned by the studios. So I have no copyright over the images. I am allowed to use them if there's no remuneration coming in for them. So for instance, presentations like this, I can use them on my websites, but I don't own any of the copyrights of that. So to answer your question, it is the studios who own the copyright, unfortunately.
Yes, because I'm just thinking now, you get worldwide usage. I mean, that would make you fairly happy, or make your bank manager fairly happy. I'm pretty sure.
Yes. I tell you, the only place where you can negotiate is when you're shooting gallery stills. So that is not something that's included in your fee when you shoot on set. It's a separate quote that you give them, and then on that, depending on who you shoot for, sometimes they will pay you. For instance, if they use certain plates over and above the shots on the poster, for instance.
Right.
Yeah, only once the film has been released. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I can only use the shots once the film has been released. So, like, for instance, I worked on an amazing movie last year, but a TV series, and I'm not allowed to speak about it. But once it comes out, I will be able to share images and talk about it. But it was the highlight of my life, so that's great. But yeah, as I say, maybe for the next presentation, we can share some of those images.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing. It could be quite a long time between wrapping and the movie being, or the series being released, and you can't say a thing about it. It's just that's the way it is. So Michael Lewis says the new Fuji X-T4 is a game changer. So I saw in there that you use X-T3s.
I do. I believe the X-T4 has just come out, and then I think we all did the COVID-19, so there's a bit of a full stop there for a lot of people. I really would like to have a look at that camera, but it's a question of recycling all your cameras and sort of saying goodbye to some of your cameras and letting other ones join the family. But pretty much, as an on-set photographer, you are in charge of buying all your own equipment, so you have to keep it current. But thanks for that question, and I will be looking at the X-T4 as well.
Cool. And then where was that one now? Lily James Getz says, thank you,
Lily.
Coco. Lots of love.
Okay, hi Lily.
Okay, I think that seems to be pretty much it from the questions and that sort of thing. So I think we can wrap it up. Coco, thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm really glad that I was tenaciously, doggedly chasing you down, because I think it was fantastic presentation. You know, it's so cool to see the different insights and different ways that photographers can make money. So thank you very much for coming on, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the lockdown and then going forward as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Quentin. And I hope everybody got something out of this presentation. I know it's a sort of very niche photography aspect of shooting, but I hope somebody got something out of it, and that I managed to inspire at least one person, even if that person is myself.
Well, me too. So there we go. So there were two.
Cool. Thanks, Quentin.
What you can do is also just go onto the group and answer any questions if they do come up. I'm sure there will be. But other than that, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, chat to you soon.
Great. Thank you so much, Quentin. Take care.
Okay.
The next
Bye.
one. Okay. Ciao, ciao.